All right, so we are going to look at the second day for solving radical equations. We're going to call this section 11-7. More solving, so it gets more difficult today. Let me know when it gets in the way of this lamp thing right here. And those of you watching the video, I can't get rid of it right now. Sorry. More solving of radical equations. Day 2. So same concepts as day 1, but they're going to get a little harder. So example 1, solve. Bearing in mind that you could still have no solution, so we still have to check our answer because our questions are going to have a radical in the equation. So I've got the square root of 6 minus x equals, and now we have an x. You're going to find that factoring is going to start to come into play. So now that you factored, we're going to have to use factoring to solve some of these equations. So I have my radical on one side by itself. Don't I just square both sides? Yeah. What happens on the left when I square that side? I get 6 minus x. And then on the right, don't I get an x squared? Anytime you have an x squared, and here's my x term, it's a quadratic, that's where it's positive. I do not want to move the x squared to the left. I always want my squared term positive. So you're going to move everything from the left to the right. So to move it, you're going to add its opposite. So I'm going to subtract 6, but add an x. I'm going to add an x, subtract 6, because I want it in descending order. 0 equals, you're going to be waiting a long time. Go get one that's already sharpened. So in descending order, x squared plus x minus 6. Second drawer down. Isn't that a quadratic in descending order that we can factor using factor sum? Yes or no? And can I use a shortcut? Do I have to do group and garbage? No, because I've got a coefficient of 1 here. So remember, in your t-chart, you're going to take the coefficient here, which is 1, right? 1 times this other bookend, negative 6, gives you a negative 6. That means I'm subtracting the factors of 6. And I'm looking for the middle term. What coefficient is here? Positive 1. So I'm subtracting the factors of 6 to get 1. What factors would those be? 2 and 3 subtract give you 1. My 1 is positive, so the bigger of these two gets the plus sign. What does the 2 have to be? Negative. So then I got 0 equals. I can use my shortcut instead of group and garbage. The x squared becomes x and x. And then can't I put minus 2 and plus 3? I told you factoring was never going to go away. Here it is. Now what do you do to solve for x? So we're going to set each one of those equal to 0. So I've got x minus 2 is equal to 0, and x plus 3 is equal to 0. Use your algebra, add 2, and subtract 3. And I get 2 values for x. X is equal to 2 or negative 3. I must check them. Question.
How did you get 1x?
Because if this coefficient is 1, you can take the x squared and split it as x and x.
Okay.
Is that what you're looking for, or are you looking for this x here?
The 1 up in the
Because that's my middle term. Your middle term always goes here. This is your middle term, right?
The other one.
This one here.
The other side.
This one here.
Yeah.
This times this, your bookends.
Okay.
This is A times C. Right?
Yep.
All right, so then I have to check my answers. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to do this mentally. Now, if on your homework it says to check, then you have to show it on paper. But mentally, I'm going to go back. I'm going to put 2 in here. What's 6 minus 2? 4. What's the square root of 4? So I get, for this one, I get a 2 on the left, equals, and then put a 2 in here. Does 2 equal 2? So that's a good answer. I'm going to keep that one. Oops, sorry. And for this one, be careful, because I'm taking 6 minus a negative 3. What's 6 minus a negative 3? It's 6 plus a 3, right? Add the opposite and you get 9. What's the square root of 9? 3. Does 3 equal, put the negative 3 in for x, does 3 equal negative 3?
No.
No. So that one gets thrown out. This is our only good solution. Be careful when you're subtracting a negative. You add a positive. All right, so next question. Example 2. So this time, again, you're going to solve. Somebody getting ready to give me a tip back there? A whole quarter, right? Oh. So we have the square root of 5x minus 6 equals x. Isn't this very similar to what we just did? Okay. So we're going to square both sides. I'm left with 5 minus 6 on the left. And when I square x, I get x squared on the right. What are you going to do now? Yeah, here's my x squared term. I want it to stay positive, so I have to move these two terms. So I'm going to subtract a 5x, subtract a 5x, add a 6, and add a 6. So I have nothing on the left but what? 0. Write this in descending order. X squared minus 5x plus 6. You factor that. Multiply your bookends. Determine what your sign is. It is positive or negative, so that tells you if you're adding or subtracting those factors. And look for your middle term. Did you factor correctly? 1 times 6 is 6, and it's a positive 6. So you are adding the factors of 6. You're looking for a middle term of negative 5. Again, we have 2 and 3, but we're adding them this time. Why? Because my product was positive. 5 is negative, the bigger one gets the negative. For these to add to be a negative 5, 2 has to be negative also. Can I use a shortcut here? I have a coefficient of 1, so I can use my shortcut. No need to do group and garbage. You can if you want to, and on the notes it shows group and garbage. Here I'm not going to do that. So x squared becomes x and x minus 2 minus 3. So set each one of those equal to 0, and x minus 3 equal to 0, and solve. Add 2, add 3. X is either equal to 2 or 3. So this time I want you to physically do the check on paper. So here's my check. I'm going to take this original equation right here, and I'm going to substitute x in here and here using substitution parentheses. So I have the square root of 5 times 2 minus 6 equals 2. So we're going to check it. Run through the math. I got the square root of 10 minus 6 equals 2. 10 minus 6 is square root of 4 equals 2. Square root of 4 is 2 equals 2. Checks. So I can accept 2 as an answer. Check 3. So I replace x with 3 here and here. So this time I get the square root of 15 minus 6 equals 3. Square root of 9 equals 3. 3 equals 3. So both of them check this time, so I have 2 different answers. Both of them work. I have 2 more. The next one you have to be super careful with, and tell me why. so for example 3. Again, we're solving. Tell me how this equation looks different. Square root of x plus 1 is equal to x minus 1. How is that different? I have two things here on the right. My radical is isolated. Because of that, can't I square both sides? But you have to be careful here. Be careful. Why? Is the answer here x squared plus or minus 1? No, why? Why? Doesn't it have a middle term? So you either have to rewrite this as x minus 1 times x minus 1, and then double distribute that, or we have to use the pattern of a squared minus, because this is negative, 2ab plus b squared. If you don't know your pattern, you better be doing it the long way. So whichever way that you do it, after you square both sides, the left side becomes x plus 1 equals, and the right side becomes a squared, because this is your a, and this is your b. So if I square the x, I get x squared. A times b, x times 1 is 1x, times 2 is 2x, and I have a minus, so minus 2x. And then b squared is 1 squared plus 1. Where is your squared term? On the right. Is it positive? So keep it there. That means anything else that's not on the right side, in other words, anything on the other side, has to be moved over here. So you're going to move the x, subtract x, line it up under its like term, subtract the x, move the 1 by subtracting 1, and lining it up with its like term over here. A nice thing on this particular problem occurs. You have a 0 equals x squared, a negative 2, and a negative 1x gives you what? Negative 3x, and then don't these cancel out? Why is this nice? How do you factor that? The GFC. So you want to take out a greatest common factor. Remember, that's always your first question. If you get stumped, you're like, huh. Go back to your flow chart. Take out the GCF. The GCF here is what? X. So we're going to take an x out in front of parentheses, and we're going to divide each one of these by an x. I'm left with here with x, and here the x's cancel, and I have a minus 3. Those are two different factors. One factor is x, one factor is x minus 3. You're going to set each of these equal to 0. So the x gets set equal to 0, and the x minus 3 gets set equal to 0. Isn't this one of my possible solutions here? It's already solved. I don't have to solve this one, but I do have to solve this one. So I'm going to add 3. And I get x is equal to 3. What do I have to do now? Check, 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 right? We're going to check it in the original problem. So we're going to take 0, and I've got the square root of 0 plus 1 is equal to 0 minus 1. What's 0 plus 1? So square root of 1 equals 0 minus 1, negative 1. What's the square root of 1? It is 1. Does 1 equal negative 1? No. So 0 gets tossed out. Check it again. Jacob, why aren't you checking it with me? So we've got 3 plus 1 equals 3 minus 1. 3 plus 1, square root of 4, equals 3 minus 1 is 2. Square root of 4 is 2. Does 2 equal 2? Yes. So x equals 3 is our only good solution. What's the solution called that we threw out? Remember? Extraneous. One more problem. Last one, example 4. Solve. So far, you've always had the radical on one side by itself on all 3 of these problems today. Well, what happens if the radical isn't by itself? So in other words, I've got 4 plus the square root of m minus 2 equals m. Can I square both sides right now? No. The plus belongs to which one of these two? The radical. So if this were a minus, would the minus belong to this radical also? So be really, really careful. And if I have a 4 plus, let's say I had a 2 right there. Can I do 4 plus 2 and get 6? No. Alright, so in order to solve this, I do have to subtract 4 from both sides, because the 4 is positive. I'm left with the square root of m minus 2 equals, these are not like terms, so the only way I can write it is m minus 4. Doesn't this now look like the problem that we just did? So I'm going to square both sides. And remember, you have to be super careful here. This is why I've tried to beat into your head that this is not m squared plus or minus 16. So either use your pattern or multiply it out. So I'm going to have m minus 2 on the left. And if you write this, and you have to write the same thing times the same thing. Some of you are doing a plus and a minus here. They have to be the same sign. And so you should end up with m squared minus 8m plus 16. What are you going to move? Am I moving this side, or am I moving this side? The left side. So I'm going to subtract an m, line it up with its like term, add a 2, and add a 2. Cancel, cancel. So I get 0 equals, write this in descending order, m squared. Negative 8 and a negative 1 gives you negative 9m. 16 plus 2 is 18. What do I have to do now? What do you do now? Factor. Is there GCF? Nope. Nope. Is it a binomial, trinomial, or 4 terms? Trinomial. Is it a perfect square trinomial? Nope. So you have to use factor sum. Can you use a shortcut? Yes. So we're going to do 1 times 18. And that gives you positive 18. I'm looking for a middle term of negative 9. What factors of 18 add to give you 9? 3 times 6 is 18, and they do add to give you 9. Your 9 is negative, so the bigger the 2 gets the negative, what does the 3 have to be? It must also be negative. So using your shortcut, the m squared becomes m and then minus 3 and minus 6. Set them both equal to 0, so m minus 3 equals 0, m minus 6 equals 0. Solve. Add 3 and add 6. So you have two choices. M is either 3 or m is either 6. Am I done? No. You have to check. So check, check. So in the original problem, I've got 4 plus the square root of, instead of m, I'm going to try out the 3, minus 2 equals, and I have another m, so I'm replacing that also with 3. 3 minus 2 is 1, so I have 4 plus the square root of 1 equals 3. Square root of 1 is 1. 4 plus 1 is 3. 5 equals 3. Is that true or false? If that had been a negative, would have worked out, but it's not, so that's why. So that doesn't equal, so we're going to throw that out. It's extraneous. So now check the other one. 4 plus the square root of 6 minus 2 equals 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. So 4 plus the square root of 4 equals 6. Square root of 4 is 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 equals 6. Check. So I can take that as an answer. Any questions at all? All right, so, you're doing the same thing as you did yesterday, Friday, but you just have some harder equations to solve for.